So I was born in Santiago, Cuba, which is in the eastern region of Cuba, which is the area of Cuba with the highest concentration, not only the eastern region of Cuba, is the highest concentration of indigenous community and indigenous culture. And then as you move west, the population density of indigenous people diminishes as you move west. So my life in Cuba, the culture of the Caribbean islands, whether it be Cuba or Behique, which is Puerto Rico, or Haiti Quisqueya, which is Dominican Republic and Haiti, there's a lot that has been inherited from Taíno culture, but it's not just Taíno culture. I mean, we have also a big dollop of Spanish, European Spanish culture that is part and parcel of what we do. And then, of course, the African, which is very strong. There's a very strong African element in the Caribbean. And so as I was growing up, all these strains of tradition and culture were part of my experience. And only later, as I got older, I always had this, from childhood, I always had this attraction for indigenous tradition, but I didn't really know just how much of Caribbean culture of Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Haiti, was influenced by indigenous culture. I found that out later, and that was my own journey of discovery. So we came to the United States in 1961, right after the Castro takeover, when there was a revolution in Cuba led by Fidel Castro, and my parents chose to leave. We came to the United States, and I grew up in a city in northern Pennsylvania called Erie, right on the lake, one of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie. So when I grew up, became a college student. I went to art school in Ohio, became an art major. I graduated from college with a Bachelor of Science in Art Education. So I'm a teacher. And pretty quickly, I got married that year, the year that I graduated. I got married to a Brooklyn girl, another Cuban, but she grew up where you guys are from, from Brooklyn. And brought her to Erie. And that same year, I discovered this center in Pittsburgh. We became very interested in an Indian center because my fascination with my indigenous ancestry, and by then I had already become, by my 20s, I had already been introduced more to the fact that a lot of what I had grown up with was in fact Taíno. And I was amazed by that, and it was a real awakening. So when I discovered that there was an Indian center in Pittsburgh, we decided to move. We came here to Pittsburgh pretty much from the beginning. I was offered a job here at the center as a research coordinator for a program that was designed to create cultural curriculums for elementary school students. So I was in my element. I was designing educational curriculums. Like I said, I was in education. I was a teacher. So this was something that was within my scope. After that project ended, our Indian Center here opened its first preschool program in the 1980s. By then I had already had we got our son, our one and only son, who, by the way, he was born on August 10th, which is August 10th of 79, so today. Today is his birthday, 43rd birthday. And I went right into teaching preschool. And I taught preschool for several years here first at the Head Start program, the first Head Start program here, and then later on in other schools. Eventually, I ended up teaching finally the subject that I had been trained to teach, which was art. And I taught art for about 20, a little over 20, 25, 26 years in the Pittsburgh public schools and Pittsburgh private schools. And then I retired in 2010. Now, during all that time, I continued my journey in the Taíno culture, discovery of my culture. And in 1981, I joined with a group of other people, and we formed a spiritual organization called the Caney Indigenous Spiritual Circle, which was one of the very first Taíno resurgence movement organizations that was created, was right here in Pittsburgh. And we started having regular meetings, regular gatherings, where we would get together and we sang and we did ceremony and we danced, and that has been going on nonstop since then, since 1981. A little bit later, in 82, I decided to go on a kind of like a physical journey of self-discovery by taking a 2-week trip on a canoe on the main river that goes through here, which is called the Allegheny River. It starts about 250 miles north of here on the border between Pennsylvania and western New York, the area of New York that has buffalo in it, and then it flows south to Pittsburgh. So we took a canoe up there, got dropped off by a friend, put the canoe in the water, and we took that 250-mile journey back to the city, to Pittsburgh. And I had a series of dreams during that trip that eventually congealed into a spiritual journey of its own, which I then put together in a book called Canoa, which means canoe. And so that book, Canoa, which came out of that journey, I finally, after a lot of development and evolution, I published it in 2016. And it really has, it is not just about a trip down a river, it's about a trip down history. And it has elements of the history of the Taínos in the Caribbean, the history of humanity on the earth. So it's a pretty wide-ranging journey.